The power of simple language. Most people think sounding smart means using big words. It's the opposite. The moment someone hides behind jargon, it usually means they don't fully understand what they're talking about themselves. True mastery of a subject shows up as the ability to strip away every unnecessary word until only the plain truth remains. A professor once said that if you can't explain something to a first-year student, you don't really understand it. That single idea should shake every teacher, every expert, every smart person to their core. Complexity is often a mask for confusion, not a sign of intelligence. When you truly grasp an idea, you can hand it to a child, a grandmother, or a stranger on the street, and they will get it, because the idea itself was never complicated, only the explanation was. This is shocking because our entire education system rewards the opposite. It rewards complicated language, dense textbooks, and intimidating vocabulary. We are taught to impress rather than to clarify. But real genius has always spoken in short sentences. Simple language is not a shortcut, it is the finish line of understanding. Anyone can complicate an idea. It takes true depth to make it simple enough for everyone to feel smart while learning it. That is the real test of knowledge, not how complex you sound, but how easily others understand you. Teaching through analogies and everyday comparisons, numbers and formulas don't move people. Stories and comparisons do. Whenever a truly great teacher wants to explain something impossible to picture, they don't reach for a chart. They reach for something you already know from daily life. A galaxy becomes a spinning plate of sugar. An atom becomes a tiny solar system. Electricity becomes water flowing through a pipe. Suddenly, something that sounded like a foreign language turns into something you already understood your whole life without realizing it. This is shocking, because it proves that most difficult subjects aren't difficult at all. They were just explained by people who forgot what it felt like to not know. Analogies work because the human brain doesn't naturally think in equations. It thinks in pictures, feelings, and comparisons. When you connect an unfamiliar idea to a familiar experience, the wall between expert and beginner disappears in seconds. This is why some teachers are unforgettable, while others, despite knowing more, are impossible to follow. Knowledge without connection is just noise. Analogies build a bridge between what someone already knows and what they are about to learn, and that bridge is often more valuable than the information itself. If you want to be truly understood, stop teaching facts, start teaching pictures. Deep understanding before simplification. Here is the uncomfortable truth. You cannot simplify what you don't deeply understand. People often confuse simplifying with skipping, leaving out the hard parts because they never actually mastered them. But real simplification is the opposite of skipping. It means understanding a subject so completely, from every angle, that you can rebuild it from scratch, using only basic pieces. This takes far more effort than memorizing a textbook. It means asking why over and over again, until there is nothing left to question. It means being able to derive an idea from nothing, not just repeat it from a book. This is shocking because it flips how we view simple explanations. We assume simple means easy to produce. In truth, the simplest explanations are usually the hardest to create. They are the final result of someone wrestling with confusion until it surrenders into clarity. Anyone can quote a complicated definition. Very few can rebuild that definition using only common sense. This is the real dividing line between someone who has memorized information and someone who has actually understood it. If your explanation collapses the moment someone asks but why, you didn't understand it, you only borrowed it. Deep understanding is the price of true simplicity, and most people are unwilling to pay it. Curiosity-driven learning passion cannot be forced, but it can be sparked, and curiosity is the spark. Most people learn because they have to. Few learn because they are hungry to. That hunger changes everything. When you are truly curious about how something works, you don't need discipline or motivation speeches. You chase the answer because not knowing feels unbearable. This kind of learner doesn't study for exams. They study because a question is stuck in their mind like a splinter that won't come out until it's answered. This is shocking because it means the traditional system, grades, deadlines, pressure, might actually be killing real learning instead of encouraging it. Curiosity cannot survive in an environment built on fear of failure. It survives in an environment built on wonder. A curious mind treats every "I don't understand this" not as embarrassment, but as an invitation to dig deeper. This mindset transforms boring subjects into fascinating puzzles. Math is no longer numbers on a page. It's a mystery waiting to be solved. Science is no longer a list of facts. It's nature whispering secrets to anyone patient enough to listen. If you want to learn anything faster and remember it forever, stop trying to memorize it. Start trying to become curious about it. Curiosity doesn't just teach you, it makes you fall in love with learning itself. The courage to say, I don't know. This might be the most shocking key of all. The smartest people are the most comfortable admitting they don't know something. Most of us are terrified of those 4 words, I don't know, because we've been trained to believe not knowing equals weakness. But the opposite is true. Pretending to know something you don't is how misinformation spreads, how bad decisions get made, and how learning stops completely. Saying I don't know is not a weakness. It is the doorway to every real discovery that has ever happened. No question was ever answered by someone who was too proud to admit their confusion. Honesty about ignorance is what separates a real thinker from a fake expert. It takes courage to say those words in a room full of people who expect you to have all the answers. But that courage is exactly what keeps a mind open, humble, and constantly growing. The moment you accept that not knowing is not shameful, you free yourself to ask better questions, explore more freely, and grow faster than people who are busy protecting a false image of certainty. Confidence isn't knowing everything. Confidence is being unafraid of what you don't know yet. This single shift in mindset can change how you learn for the rest of your life, making ideas fun and relatable. If learning feels like punishment, the brain shuts the door before the lesson even begins. But if learning feels like play, the same brain opens wide and absorbs everything effortlessly. The most unforgettable lessons are never the driest ones. They are the ones wrapped in humor, wonder, energy, and even a little bit of mischief. This is shocking because we often assume serious subjects deserve a serious tone, when in reality, seriousness is often what kills interest the fastest. Fun is not the enemy of depth. Fun is often the vehicle that carries depth into a mind that would otherwise reject it. A joke, a strange comparison, a moment of genuine excitement can make a complicated topic stick in someone's memory for years, while a monotonous lecture on the same topic is forgotten within a day. Relatability matters just as much. When an idea is connected to something a person cares about, a hobby, a memory, an emotion, it becomes personal instead of abstract. People don't remember facts. They remember how those facts made them feel. This is why the best explanations often sound less like a lecture and more like a story being told by an old friend around a fire. If you want your ideas to survive in someone's memory, don't just inform them, entertain them, surprise them, and make them feel something along the way. What if I told you that everything you find confusing right now, every formula, every theory, every complicated idea that makes your head spin, was never actually complicated at all? What if the only reason it feels hard is because somebody somewhere explained it badly? Think about that for a second. Nature doesn't speak in complicated language. The universe doesn't sit down and write itself in confusing equations to torture students. Atoms don't care about jargon. Stars don't need a PhD to shine. Complexity is a human invention, and so is simplicity. The difference between the two is not the subject, it's the teacher. I've always believed that if you can't explain something in plain words, you don't understand it, you've only memorized it. There's a massive difference between the two. Memorizing is repeating what someone else already figured out. Understanding is being able to rebuild that same idea from nothing, using only common sense and curiosity. One is a photocopy. The other is real ownership of knowledge. Here's what shocks people the most. The smartest minds in history didn't speak like professors. They spoke like storytellers. They used pictures instead of jargon. They compared an atom to a tiny solar system, a wave to ripples in a pond, electricity to water rushing through a pipe. Suddenly the impossible became familiar. The stranger became a friend. That's not luck, that's a method. And that method is available to every single one of us. But here's the part nobody tells you. Simplifying an idea is far harder than complicating it. Anyone can throw big words around to sound impressive. It takes real mastery to strip an idea down to its bones and still keep its soul intact. Simplicity isn't the beginning of understanding, it's the finish line. It's what's left after you've asked why 100 times, after you've torn an idea apart and rebuilt it with your own hands. And curiosity, real burning curiosity, is the fuel behind all of it, not the fear of failing an exam, not the pressure to impress someone, just the unbearable itch of wanting to know how something works. That's the same energy a child has when they ask, why is the sky blue, for the 5th time in a row. Somewhere along the way, most of us are taught to suppress that itch. We're taught that questions are annoying, that curiosity slows things down. But that itch, that hunger to know, is the single greatest tool a human mind can ever own. And here's something that will shock you even more. The most brilliant people are the ones most comfortable saying, I don't know. Not because they're weak, but because they're honest. Pretending to understand something is the fastest way to stop learning it. Admitting confusion isn't embarrassing, it's the doorway to every discovery that has ever mattered. The moment you're brave enough to say those 3 words, you open a door that fear had kept shut your entire life. So the next time something feels too complicated to understand, stop blaming yourself. Ask better questions. Look for the simple picture hiding behind the complicated words. Get curious instead of intimidated. Speak about it the way you'd explain it to a child, or a grandmother, or a stranger who has never heard of it before. If you can do that, if you can take something enormous and shrink it down until anyone can hold it in their hands, you haven't just learned it, you've mastered it. At its heart, this entire idea comes down to one simple truth. Real intelligence isn't measured by how complicated you can sound, but by how clearly you can make others understand. Simplicity is not the opposite of depth, it is the proof of it. Every analogy, every honest "I don't know," every ounce of childlike curiosity is a tool that turns confusion into clarity and fear into fascination. If we want a world full of better thinkers, better teachers, and better learners, we don't need more complicated language. We need more courage to be simple, more curiosity to keep asking why, and more honesty to admit what we still don't know. The next time you learn something new, or teach something to someone else, remember, the goal was never to sound smart. The goal was always to be understood. What if